Hello, hello. What is up, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope you're doing well. Pastor Tanner here. And guys, I'm excited to get into sermon prep. I was looking at my roadmap, and my roadmap shows that I chose 3 verses for this upcoming Sunday. And I don't know why I made such a horrible decision, but I did. Okay, that's the decision I made. Hold on, let me turn the music down. I know it's too loud. Guys, I'm really excited for tonight because, hold on, I can't do 2 things at once. There we go. Hopefully that's low enough. You can hear me. I am really excited for tonight because I'm loving getting back into some sermon prep. Want to get into some good rhythms stepping into 2025, and this is a good rhythm for me. But look, I broke this down months ago, and you can see John 12, 1-8, reasonable. John 12, 9-11. I'm guessing when I was looking at the pericope, I didn't think these 3 verses went with this section or with this section. But I so rarely preach small pericopes like that. Man, look, I'm planning on being in John 12 for 7 weeks. Somebody asked me, I was chatting with some people at the church, and they're like, how long does it take for you to typically go through a book? You know, they were like newer. And I was like, well, since I've started, I've done Mark, Ecclesiastes, Hebrews, and now John. And we're in the middle of John. So take 5 years and spread those books out. So it seems like, depending on book length, it takes me about 1.5 to 2 years to do 1 book. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Hey, I hope you guys are doing well. I know the content has been skimpy lately. It's holiday season, guys. I got to get back into it, but I'm enjoying it. Let's look at these 3 verses and see what we can make of them. I don't think they're going to be easy, but let's see. It says this: when the large crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to put Lazarus to death as well. I don't know this to be the case, but this might be the only place in all the Gospels where this is listed. Let's continue. Because on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and believing in Jesus. Man. So, yeah, there's not a lot of action going on here, but like digging into issues of like jealousy and truth and all that type of stuff, that's going to be valuable, right? That's going to be valuable. So we obviously have opportunities and options here, but man, that's an interesting one. No doubt. So let's see. How do we want to start? Man, there's so many ways you could take this. You could like just kind of do kind of a topical study. You could do something a little bit with like some cross-referencing and reverse reference it. Of course, you could just throw it into the passage guide and look at what some of the commentaries are saying. You know, there's a lot of places to start. This is a short enough pericope. We could actually do some of the exegesis ourselves. You guys know I kind of skip the exegetical guide usually, and I don't do a lot of personal translation. I just find bang for the buck in terms of how much of that material you end up using in the pulpit just isn't there. But it might be a good night to do that. Might be a good night to just, you know, actually dig into some exegesis. What is up, Oracle? Been a minute. How are you? Good day, Pastor Tanner. Thank you. Yes, it has been a while. I hope you are well. Thanks for swinging by. Good to see you. How has life been? Yes. Guys, I actually do have tea tonight. I have been drinking a raw pu'er throughout the day, right? And it's been delicious. I think I'm not that far into it. This might be steep 4, maybe 5. And this particular raw pu'er goes for 11, 12. Does really well. It's doesn't get too bitter, so I'm enjoying it very much. Angie Jags, what is up? Good to see you. Welcome. Yes, I'm not wearing my glasses, guys. I actually am wearing contact lenses today. We got quite a bit of snow today, and so what I did is I grabbed the snow blower. It's so much easier to wear my goggles while snow blowing when I don't have my glasses on, so I threw contact lenses in. I grabbed a pair of glasses just in case, but that's only if my eyes dry out and I need to switch to them. So, yeah, it might be weird to look at my face with no glasses on it, but I appreciate you. Okay, I appreciate you. Yes, we got the tea. We got the tea, Angie Jags, and the hot fires. Oracle says, it's been so long that I've graduated from seminary, have also joined the seminary as a tutor. Let's go. Congrats, Oracle. That's awesome. Do you tutor all the subjects or just like specific ones? And is that a paid position? Is it volunteer? Is it something that you can kind of work full time? Is it part time? And is it like a stepping up platform into some sort of, you know, like assistant professorship or something like that? What are your goals with that? Very cool. Thanks for sharing. Excited to hear. Yep. It's as good as it's been all day. Fantastic. All right, guys. Before I jump in, I want us to stop and consider for ourselves. Let's do some exegesis on our own. So I'm actually going to bring the Greek over, and I'm going to give you guys my best effort at translation. You guys know I'm not good at this. I watched a video today, actually, of a guy who had used Duolingo to study Spanish, right? And he went live and just kind of talked about, hey, here's where my Spanish is at. It's going to be kind of like that, okay? So my Greek, I haven't been into the Greek for a while, and you're just going to get to see kind of what I know, what I don't know, etc. I got nothing to hide here. I'm not using the Greek regular, okay? I took 3 semesters of Greek in my MDiv, right? And I don't read the Greek regularly, right? It's just not something I do. So, but I'm somewhat familiar with it. So, yeah, we'll just see what I know. I got nothing to hide from you guys, right? What's up, Fuzz? Good to see you. Stop and consider playing Path of Exile 2. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. I don't play many video games these days, Fuzz. I do not play many video games these days. My speaker cut off at your reply. Oh, no problem, Oracle. You can go back and listen to it. I asked a lot of questions. I'm curious for you. Is it a paid position or is it not? Do you have multiple classes you get to tutor, or is it specific ones? Is it like part-time or full-time? And is it like a stepping stone type of position where you can get a professorship or an assistant professorship or something like that in the future? Anyway, no worries. Yeah, I haven't played a lot of games recently, Fuzz. Haven't played a lot of games. All right, so let's look at this. We've got Egno, Un, Ha Aklas, and it looks like the Ha is... I forget what these symbols mean in the NA28. It might be like that they're only in some manuscripts or something like that. Ha Aklas, Palus, Ek, Tone, Eudion, right? And this is the Jews. And the Tone, Eudion, this is, I believe it's the genitive, the plural genitive. I think so. And that usually means of the Jews, right? So that's my guess, right? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Hati Eke, Estin Kai, Elthon, Udiaton, Yesun Manon. All henna clauses are really important because they express like purpose or the reasons of doing things. Kaiton Lazaran, so there's your Lazarus, right? Id Osin, Han Egaren, Ek Necron, right? Ek Necron. So Necron is like dead, corpse, something like that. Ek is out of. It's important to recognize the prepositions. They're probably some of the easier ones to recognize. Dia is usually through. Manon is, I think, only, right? All is like, comes from Allah. I think it means but. Henna in order that. Kai, Ton, Ladzaron. Kai is like a connecting word, like and then Ton, Ladzaron. These often have articles in front of them. So Ton, Ladzaron goes together, right? Tone, Eudion go together. Ha, Aklas. Again, this ha might be provided. I'm not sure. But that's what we're essentially getting. And so Egno, it sounds like it comes from gnosis, which means to know, right? So that's kind of my guess there. Aklas, I think, is crowd, right? So something like the crowd's new. Palus, it reminds me of Palis, which I think is city, but I think it's a completely different word here, so I'm going to have to look that one up. Ek is out of the Jews right here. Hati. Hati can also function as like a henna clause type of thing, right? Sometimes Hati means because or something like that. Estin is like to be. Kai, Elthon. This is a popular word, but I'm not remembering it off the top of my head. Udiaton, Yesun, so this is Jesus. Etc. So I've got most of the isolated words here, right? I'll tell you in a moment what I think it is. Okay. Fuss says, coming over here, Greek Guama. Nice. You've been gone for so long, I haven't seen you. LOL. Are you still a Baptist? Yes, indeed. Have you changed, sir? Have you changed? Oracle says, oh yeah, it's a full-time position. Nice. I'm currently teaching theological research and writing, helping out with Greek. So that I can brush up my Greek. That's fantastic. It's a stepping stone. We'll be starting my, THM at GCTS next year fall. That's fantastic, Oracle. Good for you. Awesome. I'm actually interested in potentially pursuing a PhD in 2025 on epistemology, right? So I'm looking into some higher education options as well. Very cool, Oracle. Well, good for you. Congrats. Take the opportunity to learn as much as you can. That's awesome. What's up, Boyhood Dream? I heard Tanner recently became United Methodist. Must be a different Tanner. Fuzz says, no way, I'm Baptist with a capital B. May as well capitalize the whole thing. There you go. Well, I haven't changed. I did have a conversation with somebody recently that I think I'm more of a theological and doctrinal Baptist than I am like a cultural Baptist. I have found that even though I came to my position of being Reformed Baptist through theological conviction, that in my church and many other churches, they are Baptists out of cultural tradition. And there are many things we disagree on due to that. And what I know about you, Fuzz, I think you're probably similar to me in this regard. Right? All right. So I'll give you my best guess at the moment. And you just feel these things out. You recognize a handful of words and just feel it out. I'm not parsing individual words while I'm reading, guys. So, egno, un. Un is like a connector. It's post-positive, right? So usually this is the first word that's translated in English, but it usually goes at the beginning. So un, I'm gonna give that something like therefore or next or after that. It's moving on, and it makes sense with this un here why I stopped at verse 8 and started a new pericope in verse 9, right? So this is going to be like following up from the previous action. Something happened. The crowds knew out of the Jews. So out of the Jews, the crowds knew something. Again, I'm not sure. It's going to be hard here because this is egno. So this it might be first person, but I'm not sure about that. Hati, eke, estin. That so they knew because something like he was there or where he went. So I think they knew something about Jesus, right? And Elthon, I forget. U diaton, through Jesus the only. So I'm thinking they're talking about actually they knew that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. But in order that the Lazarus, ide is behold, right? So yeah, that's my best guess. Something like out of the crowd, some of the Jews knew that Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead. Something like that. That's my best guess. Okay, what do we have? When the large crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there. Okay, so that's what they knew or learned, right? That Jesus was there. There's the estin is the was, and then eke, I'm guessing, is the there, right? Let's see it over here. Yeah, was there. And then there's your connector, kai. This is what they did because of that information, right? There's your elthon. What does it mean to come? Okay, yeah, that's a tough one, just on the conjugation, etc. So they came to Jesus, but not only on account of him. There you go. So I said the manon, only him, but you can see it's not only on the account of him. So a lot of these words together kind of make that a little more complex than I'd expected. But on account of Lazarus, because they heard he raised him from the dead, right? So, okay, I was close, right? I got the sense, I got the idea, but that's good. But here's the cool thing about it. When you're working through the Greek, you're looking at the individual words. And so, yeah, I don't have a perfect translation off the top of my head. And if I was really doing this right, I'd pull out the lexicon. I wouldn't look at the English. I'd look at each individual word in the lexicon, and I'd try to suss out, like, okay, what are those words? You can click on the words, and it'll parse them for you. Look, I don't do a lot of personal parsing myself. You can have out your verb tables and your noun tables if you want, etc. Why? We have tools that'll tell you the parsing right there. So I'm not looking to just read my Greek New Testament sitting there by myself with my coffee. If somebody else wants to do that, God bless them, right? That's a lot of work to get your Greek up to that level. So anyway, I've got my parsing here. I would highlight it. I'd look at the lexicon. I would look at the parsing, and I would be able to probably get the sense, but it would take me, to do the whole sentence, it would take me a good 10 minutes, right? Looking up all the words I don't know, confirming all that type of stuff. But you can see I got the sense, right? This is, if you're talking in a foreign language, it's not your first language, you're going to get the sense, and you're going to try to figure out what's going on, right? So that's the idea, right? Fuzz says, agreed. I'm still more in line with the Baptists of 1644, 46, LBCF. I definitely see a lot of people who are just traditionally Baptists and Baptists because of their view of the church, not really thinking of it systematically. Yeah, I got you. Exactly. Man, this tea is good. All right. Let's look at the next one. Ebu Lusanto. That one's worth looking up. And you can tell that this word is all sorts of modified, right? So the on the front, I think it changes the tense. and then the Santo at the end. This is actually not a very popular ending. I forget exactly what it would be, but the verbal conjugation here is very different, so this is a word that's like worth looking into. I think the root is something like bulo, right? But I'll have to figure out what bulo means or something like that. But again, it's been heavily modified, and it's probably in a verbal construction that is just atypical. And what that means is it might be a verb worth paying attention to, right? De, another post-positive, just like un, not just like, but very similar. Hoi, archiri race. I believe this comes from, I think this is high priest. The arc, I think, is the high, and then like the key race, I think, comes from, I forget what the root would be or the lemma, but I believe that's what this is. This is high priest, I believe. We'll see if I'm right. Henna, again, another henna clause. So there's 2 henna clauses, and it's actually really helpful to pay attention to the henna clauses because, again, like these might make up, if you're unsure where to go with your treatment of the text, you might just pay attention to the henna clauses and do something with those, right? I want to get something a little darker. That looks great. So I'm noticing 2 hennas here. You can preach sermons where you just go through and highlight every henna clause and then build your like main points around those, right? So anyway, Kaiton, Lazaron. So there's the Lazarus again. So Lazarus is now mentioned twice. Apoktanosine, right? And I think it comes from apa. So this has been appended, right? Like if you look up apoktanosine in your lemma or your lexicon, I don't think you're going to find anything. The apa has been appended here. Apa is a preposition, and this happens sometimes in Greek where 2 words are smashed together, usually with a preposition. So I don't know what this means, but apokrina, I'm not sure. I know there are some apa words which means to like answer back or to speak back to somebody, right? But I'm not recognizing a lot of words here. Noting that it's short, again, and noting another henna clause, I think this verb is going to be important. Okay, so I'm just giving you guys some of my rough sense of it. So let's go ahead and look in. It says here in English, so the chief priest made plans. That's, I'm sure, what this word is, made plans. The is the past tense, right? Made plans. And so I got chief priest right. I wasn't wrong about that. Hoi arche race, okay? In order that, and that's the 2 right here, in order that they would put Lazarus to death as well, okay? As well. And so I'm guessing this is, this right here is death as well. This entire thing here, let's look. Yeah, to put to death as well. Is the as well supplied? No, they're attaching it to the chi here. It's that's tough for me. I just see chi as a general connecting word, but and you could put that as and the Lazarus to put to death, right? So they've already talked about putting Jesus to death, and Lazarus we're going to put to death as well. Also, sometimes the article, even if it's supplied, like it's supplied with a proper noun, you don't always say it, right? So we wouldn't say the Lazarus in English, but it is written that way in Greek. But it's a convention where, like, often, not always, but often, the article is attached to the proper name, okay? So very interesting. I think this verb is important. Let's check this out. Aorist middle indicative, third person plural. So the Santo is the third person plural portion here. And again, it's in the middle voice, which is pretty unique. It's the least used of the active and passive, I'm pretty sure. All right, we got our last one. And we've got hati paloi. Okay, and this is just a different rendering of what we had up here. Here we had palus, okay? Hati paloi is going to be your plural of it. Again, hati, there are so many because or in order that words here. You see what I mean? Like we got a hati here, henna henna. A paloi di auton. Your D is kind of like your dia, but it's post-positive. Now you'd say that's 2 sets in, but again, hati, paloi kind of go together here. So very interesting. Auton, hupegon. I don't know this word. I don't know that word at all. Hupegon. Ton iudaion. Again, this is the Jews. Kai epistuon. This reminds me of a to know word, right? Epi, right? I don't know though. Anyway, my Greek's rusty. Ace ton iesun. Ace, into. And then, of course, you have here Jesus, right? So what does it say here? Hati, that's your because on account of him. Okay. What's this paloi? Many. Okay. So up here it was, the crowd was ha'aklos, and then it was palus was many. And then because many, dia is through, hupagon is to go away. So auton is it's when we say like he, him, her, etc. And so what they're saying is because of him, I'm almost certain this auton refers back to Lazarus, right? And often you can check through the conjugation, right? The way you often know how nouns connect to other words is through their conjugation. So we have ladzaron back here, right? Ladzaron, which is noun accusative, singular masculine. We would expect the auton to be in the accusative as well. And sure enough, it is. Pronoun, personal, third person accusative, singular, right? So the auton here refers back to Lazarus. So because on account of him, many, that's the paloi, again, through him, it's essentially through him. Many through him were leaving the Jews, okay? We're going away from the Jews and believing, episteuon, in Jesus. Okay, there you go. So I spent more time on that than I thought I would. Some important verbs here. I think these are important. Let's go ahead and highlight these. Boom. Come on. And I think this one's going to be important. Believing, right? This one looks accusative also, but it's a verb. Is it a, there are a couple of verbs that are like nounal verbs. You know, we have gerunds and things like that in English. What does it say? It is. Yeah, third person plural. So, verb imperfect, because it's imperfect, that's why it contains that. Imperfect, active, indicative, third person plural, to believe. Yeah, pretty cool. So, this is important verb. This is important verb. I wonder if this is important here. To kill, put to death as well. Present active subjunctive. It is in the subjunctive. Let's highlight it. Okay. Now, just so you know, I'm doing all this kind of by hand, but it's because I want to like wrestle with the text a little bit myself. You know, sometimes it's good to spend a little more time digging through. But another way you can do everything I'm doing here, guys, is to use the exegetical guide, right? Let me show you the exegetical guide real quick if you guys haven't seen it. So that's this one, and we'll throw 9 through 11 in here. And I only use the exegetical guide or do like word by word conjugations like this. Here's your word by word. When I have short pericopes and I have extra time, right? And this is the coolest thing. It breaks down every word for you, right? Now, if you don't want every word, if you're like, oh, that's too granular, all you have to do is come up here to your settings and show only lemmas occurring 10 times or fewer. Boom, right? And what that means, it's going to highlight the most important words, right? So you can grab that, click off, redoes it, and then now, look, not many hits. No hits in verse 9. Only one hit, boom, special important verb in verse 10, no hits in verse 11. So this might be a little too constrained, right? But what that automatically tells me is, okay, this is not a common verb. Buluo, remember I said it was bulo? No, it's buluo. Let's see how many times in Greek. Boom, it's only 6 times in the entirety of the New Testament. And 2 in 2 Corinthians, 1 in Acts, 2 in John, 1 in Luke. And that basically wraps it up, right? To plan, deliberate, or get ready to say, okay? So that's just like a really important, if you want to dig in meaty into like the grammar of the verbs, you can do that. The other option is maybe you're like, look, you could increase this, of course, if you go 40, right? Hey, give me 40 times. Okay, now I know Lazarus is not used as often, but that's it. So it just added Lazarus because Lazarus, you know, in the entirety. So a lot of these are common words, right? And of course, you can just play with this to get some good feedback or information. Let's go 80. Now we got this put to death verb as well added. And then also we've got this hupagon, right? Coming from hupago, to go away. So you can see you can do that, absolutely, if you just want to get a sense. And then you can also highlight particular parts of speech. So oftentimes the verbs are really important. You just want to look at every verb. Okay, well, here's what you got. Just at a glance, you know, there is one verb in this entire thing. Whoa, like that's a big deal, right? I've only got one verb. Oh, okay. Well, the other way you could have done that is you come up here to your, not there. Sorry, guys, I'm still getting used to the new setup over here. You need to have your, I think it's your formatting? Yes. And then over here, this far one under formatting, this is your visual filters. And so if we have New Testament verbs turned on, which I do, boom. Okay. Well, you can see here, doing all the verbs. It's only because I did verbs 20 times. I need all words. Let's see. Survey says. Yeah, there we go. There's all the other verbs. I was like, that's a lot more red than we got hits here. That's why. You got to turn all words and then all your verbs on. So again, if you guys want to do some in-depth study on the grammar and do some serious exegesis yourself, Exegetical Guide is fantastic. Like if you were doing this, let's say I dialed in to that key verb, right? You immediately can open up this. You've got your breakdown here. You can get all your senses. And I love opening up the lemma section and boom, you've got all of your Greek lexicons here in priority order. And so like if you just open up the first 5, presumably, let's open the first like 8 or 9. Presumably you have organized these in a way to get the maximum information out of here. So you just reference these. Like I'm telling you, you spend 15 minutes reading through this word. You're an expert on this word now, right? Obviously you're not, but relative to anyone else in your congregation, of course, you know, so Logos so powerful. What's up, Arsenal? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for swinging by. Whoa. Looks like last time I was using this one, I was feeling a little blind. Let's change our, where is it? I know the, man, this resource is so zoomed in. All the other ones you can see are quite reasonable. Not this one. What did I do wrong? Guys, I'm going to mess around with this and get it fixed right because I need to learn, right? Like how do you, that's my whole thing with Logos. I've just learned by doing, right? So I got to keep clicking around and figuring this out. I am sure there's just a quick reference here. I thought it would be in the triple dot menu. Let's read it more closely. No? Formatting. It's got to be formatting. No. I like the emphasize. More. Guys, some of my, view, it's going to be in here. Some of my videos need there's the zoom. Some of my videos need updated now that now that the system has changed quite a bit. I was looking back at some of my old videos and it's like, that no longer applies, actually, because it doesn't look that way anymore. Anyway. Okay. So that was a little work on the quote unquote exegesis side of things. And again, you could spend as long as you'd like doing that step. I know there are a lot of people who spend many hours in exegesis. And frankly, in school, that's kind of what they taught us to do, right? Like, hey, don't rely on commentaries, do your own exegesis, etc. But I find like if you can think critically, you know, and you can be objective about things, it's not bad to, you know, dig into the commentaries early. I guess what matters is how much you allow the thoughts of other authors to influence your opinions, right? And these days, I take most of what is said in the commentary with a grain of salt. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump in. I am thinking, because we're only taking 3 verses here, and they're pretty buried in the book, right? Like, we're in chapter 12. This is not the sort of thing that often, you know, like your single volume commentaries or your study Bibles are going to have a lot to say here, right? So we can actually get into the meatier commentaries here. Let's spend some time doing some commentary work today, and let's consult some ones we normally wouldn't. That's what I would like to do. Just see what they have to say, because I really need my imagination sparked on this one, guys. This one is very unique. It's very different. Just the pericope I selected, and the principles to be gathered from it are different, right? The point being, if I do it right, we should produce a sermon that is going to be very insightful for a lot of people and very different. I believe in giving as balanced a diet as you can from the pulpit, okay? What I mean by that is I try not to get up and just do the same thing week after week after week. I like to mix it up. And this partially comes from my own personal opinion. I like variety, right? But it also comes kind of from the conviction that, you know, I think the people in the pew grow most when you're giving them a variety of perspectives and ideas, right? So that's kind of my take on that idea. So cool. let's dig into some of these. First, let's start with exegetical summary. Always a good place to start. And yeah, let's hit this up. I can see things are getting blurry now. Guys, I might switch to glasses middle of the stream. Not really sure. I can just tell staring at the screen for a while with the contact lenses in, not working the best. Not working the best. All right, let's see. Here's the text. Now the great crowd of Jews learned that he is there, and they came not only because of Jesus, but also so that they may see Lazarus, whom he raised from the dead. Nice to see in the exegetical summaries, they do more of a wooden, literalistic translation. So they're capturing a lot of these words that get smoothed out in something like the ESV. So nice to just read these translations, see the difference. Question, should the article the be retained in the phrase the great crowd, as some manuscripts have it, or be omitted as the others, and what is its meaning? You can see here, right here, ha-aklos. I told you that one in brackets. There's something about it. Well, some commentators say the article should be retained, the great crowd. The reading that includes the article is the most difficult, and so probably the correct reading. So I'm guessing there is let's look real quick. I'm guessing there's a textual variant at this point. So I have my text and translation tier list. It's open right here, boom. And sure enough, although this one only has verse 11 in it. So no, he does not include verse 9, the ha-aklos. Evidently he didn't think it relevant enough. Yeah, his textual variant he's looking at is in verse 11. So he doesn't think it's very relevant or that important. This is Philip Comfort. And if he doesn't think it's that important, does Metzger comment on this? Let's look at Metzger. Metzger does, but it's very brief. What does Metzger say? He says, it is natural to read aklos paulus, P66, Alexandrinus, others, and ha-aklos, ha-palus, as scribal ameliorations of the difficult reading egno un ha-aklos palus. So that's what they're saying here. And that's why the majority of these commentaries go with this reading, right? Because what they're essentially saying is scribal amelioration. They're saying it's bumpy, right? It's awkward, therefore it's probably original. The good scribes don't make the text more awkward, right? A good scribe is probably making the text less awkward, right? Cal Magic, you threw me a curveball this evening. Didn't think you'd be streaming on New Year's Eve. Glad to be here, though. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's good to see you, Cal Magic, and it's my pleasure. I am glad to be here as well. Good to see you. Ameliorations of the difficult reading, egno un ha-aklos palus. But the expression ha-aklos palus serving as the subject verb is such unusual Greek with palus the predicate position that serious doubts arise whether the evangelist could have written it thus. A majority of the committee therefore thought it appropriate to enclose ha within square brackets. So they're saying, look, this is the most awkward, so we think it might be original, but it feels weird that the original author would write it that way, so it's in brackets. Okay, makes sense. And you can see Philip Comfort, he's like, this is not even worth commenting on. Here in exegetical summaries, you can see the majority say it should be, no, I was going to say the majority say it should be retained, but no, this is pretty split right here. All of these commentaries, boom, 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 and these are no slouches, right? NICNT, Lenski, right? This is Anchor Bible. Yep, Anchor Bible from Raymond Brown. NTC, WBC, right? Like these are good commentaries, Word Biblical Commentary, etc. These say it should be retained, with a handful of others making some caveats. But all of these say it should be gotten rid of, okay? So expositors, Godot, ICC is a heavy hitter. The second NICNT, so you can see the first and the second, they split on their position here. And then, you know, a lot of translations and things like that. So you can see of these two, the heavier hitters to me, at least the majority of the heavier hitters are in saying it should be retained. But yeah. Cal Magic, FYI, Japanese is harder than Hebrew and Greek. I'm not surprised to hear that at all. Cal Magic, how is the Japanese coming along? Is it coming along well? I'm very excited for you, and it's your nephew, right? I think that's going to be a lot of fun for you guys. Perk says, hi, Pastor. Good afternoon. Hello, Perk. Good to see you. Welcome. Good afternoon to you also. Guessing you won't be streaming tomorrow, so I'm going to take the chance now to wish you a Happy New Year, Pastor. Hope you had a great 2024, and may your 2025 be full of blessings. May God bless you. Thank you so much, Perk. I appreciate you. God bless you as well. And yeah, I won't be streaming tomorrow, so you are correct in that assumption. Really good to see you. Thanks for swinging by. All right. Well, let's kind of keep going here. I like the direction we're headed for sure. And, yeah. Let's take a look. I guess I don't care about this issue. A great crowd versus the great crowd. Unlikely the author would refer to the article, not previous mentioned. Maybe added by scribes, blah, blah, blah. Good to know it's there. If somebody asks in the congregation, because, you know, their translation reads different than others, we know the answer, but not going to take a lot of notes on this one. Our tone eudion, man, eudion, tone eudion. Man, it's not that hard. Got to slow down. The Jews, the common people, or the Jewish authorities? I'm going to guess Jewish authorities. This says common people. Really? In John, the expression of the Jews usually refers to Jesus' enemies, but many common people were also included. They are the Jewish opposition. So again, split here. Very interesting. I mean, I can see what they're saying. And it was recent, like last chapter, I think, there were some people of the Jews, and they were, you know, generally positively predisposed to Jesus because they're friends of Mary and Martha, right? So I get where they're coming from on this. Okay, good. Well, I know those issues are discussed. What may have been a factor in the chief priest's decision to kill Jesus and Lazarus? The chief priests were Sadducees and did not believe in the resurrection of the dead. Lazarus was a living witness to the resurrection and to the power of Jesus over death. That's a very insightful comment, right? So they're letting essentially their systematic theology, don't let your systematic theology overtake your openness to God. Something like that, right? Thank you, Pastor. What are you studying today? I am studying 3 short verses, John 12, 9 through 11. When the large crowd of Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to put Lazarus to death as well, because on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and believing in Jesus, right? So, yeah, and I'm glad I started this study, because this seems to me to be a key theme, right? The key theme being, when God doesn't fit in our box, we need to attack those who are of the other side, right? Who are promoting the false idea about God. And how often do we do this in Christian circles? How many Christian groups out there, you know, their main mission in life is to attack others because their version of Christianity or their version of God or whatever doesn't line up with their expectations? I think that's a fair application. Grandson, there you go. Have to learn to think differently. She's, he's. I'm a teacher in all the same spelling. She's, he's. I'm a teacher are all the same spelling. No gender differentiation in Japanese, except contextually, I hope. 3 alphabets to learn, 500 plus characters to learn. I'm about 100 so far. That's crazy, Cal Magic. Well, very cool. Keep after it. I know with your dedicated mindset for study, you're going to do well. Arsenal, wait, not everyone believes the way I do? There you go. Exactly. And that's a perfect way to put it. Not everyone believes what you do. What are you going to do about it? I could even think of an illustration here, right? I'll ask you guys this question, okay? Because it's a perfect corollary, you know, don't know the exact answer. But let's say that in your town, there's a Muslim mosque, and all of a sudden, you hear that the local imam raised somebody from the dead, right? And this is news in the whole town. A bunch of people there are like, this imam raised somebody from the dead. It's a miracle. You know, this is God's work. What's your immediate reaction? If your immediate reaction is, he could only do that through the power of Satan, or it's a trick and he's evil, you are acting just like the Pharisees and Sadducees do here, right? That's bottom line, okay? And don't get me wrong, those are options, okay? Those are options that those sorts of things are happening. But that's exactly what the Pharisees did here. The Pharisees learn that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, and their systematic theology, they believe a certain thing about God, and Jesus doesn't fit into that picture. So what do? Well, we need to put Lazarus to death, and we need to put Jesus to death, because clearly this couldn't have been done unless it was done through satanic power, or there was some sort of parlor trick going on here. Jesus couldn't really have raised Lazarus from the dead. You see what I mean? It's the exact same type of scenario. Right. All right. Perk says, oh, right, the Sadducees. Do we know what happened to them after Jesus' crucifixion? Actually, are they still a thing today in Judaism? I actually don't know. You hear about the Sadducees a lot when discussing, Second Temple Judaism in Jesus' time, but, don't actually know what became of them, if that makes sense. You don't hear about them a lot these days, so I'm guessing they fell out of favor for some reason. But yeah, it's a good question. Cal Magic, YouTube is full of Christians commenting on what's wrong with Christianity. Yeah, that's not wrong. There's a lot of that these days, no doubt. Perk says, but isn't it a fact that only through Jesus something like that is possible? I don't think Muslims believe in Jesus the same way we do. You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all, Perk. Right? But look, I'm giving an example of what the situation would describe or entail. You see what I mean? Like, it's a similar situation. I'm not denying that it poses a puzzle. You see what I mean? I'm not denying at all that it poses a puzzle. It's like, okay, how could this happen, right? But you put yourself in the exact same position as the Pharisees here if you jump to the conclusion that this must be done through some nefarious or evil means, or this can't be a real miracle, right? Because that's what they're doing, and they're getting ready to take action on that, right? They don't have any more information. They haven't gone to see or anything like that. They're ready to go. They're going to take action. Oh, I see. My bad. I get the core meaning of your example. Exactly. So, again, it's puzzling to be sure, right? But to line up and say he's on the wrong team, therefore this is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, you're putting yourself in the same mindset as the Pharisees here. Cal Magic, I'm not sure I agree, PT. I have Jesus as a reference point to compare that the Pharisees they had prophecy. That said, I would wait and investigate the reliability of the event. And that's, I guess, what I'm urging, is the wait and investigate. Like I said, it's a puzzle, okay? But to automatically assume that the only means through which this could occur, because, like, I think those are the natural jumping points for 99% of Christians, right? Muslims are on the wrong team. They believe wrong about Jesus. Therefore, this is either demonic activity, didn't really happen, must have been some sort of parlor trick or something weird like that, right? But, like, I guess my point is, Cal Magic, 99% of people leave it at that. You see what I mean? Said event does nothing to affect their life. They don't actually go and investigate. They don't look into the reliability of the event with an open mind. They just assume one of those conclusions that I said, and that's it. They're done with it, right? And that's a perfect recipe for just staying in your bubble and not growing and not learning, right? That's how I feel. All right. Let's keep going. Should the verb go... Oh, no, this one. To whom does the pronoun auton him in the phrase on account of him refer? It refers to Lazarus because of Lazarus. Yeah, I already said I think it's Lazarus as well. Question. Should the verb going away be interpreted metaphorically or literally? It should be interpreted metaphorically, meaning to leave one's allegiance to the Jewish leaders and their teaching. Going away should be interpreted literally as leaving a place. Many of the Jews began to go away to Bethany or to Jerusalem. Yeah, I think this answer is much more compelling, and obviously the vast majority of commentators and translations agree. So many of the people were turning from them and putting their faith in Jesus. While it could mean going over to Bethany, it much more likely means going over to Jesus' side. I agree with that 100%. All right. Cal Magic says, I think many Christians are thinking about Revelation's position of the Antichrist performing miracles in the last days. You see what I mean? Like, these are controlling narratives, if that makes sense, Cal Magic, right? We have, and all human beings do this. You can't not, right? And this is where my epistemology, I guess, comes into play, which is what I'm potentially going to be doing my PhD on. But these are all controlling narratives, which may or may not be right. You don't actually know if that controlling narrative is correct or not, right? This could be manifestation of the Antichrist? May not be, right? How would you know? And I think what ends up happening is a lot of people have their controlling narrative, and you don't actually look into the details yourself with an open mind. You just use your controlling narrative to interpret information as it comes at you, right? So we've got our controlling narrative, and if a piece of information can be assimilated into our controlling narrative, no problem. You're welcome. Come on in. The water's fine. And if that piece of information cannot be assimilated within our controlling narrative, rejected, right? Okay, well, you have to have a means of rejecting it. Okay, what is my means? Well, it's demonic. The resurrection part did happen of Lazarus from the dead. Couldn't have been from God, though, because we know Jesus isn't from God. So therefore, the resurrection couldn't have been from God. It must be demonic, right? That is exactly what the Pharisees said about Jesus, right? You raise the dead through Beelzebub, the prince of demons, right? That is exactly what they said. Why? They had a controlling narrative about Jesus, just like we have a controlling narrative about the imam, okay? And then the second option, if you don't want to go that far, you would just say, okay, parlor trick, couldn't really happen, etc., right? But notice, like, both of those conclusions are arrived at based upon your controlling narrative, not arrived at based upon any evidence itself. You see what I mean? It's not as though you went and dug into the event, investigated, tried to get more information, etc., right? To me, that kind of due diligence is what Nicodemus does when it comes to Jesus. Nicodemus is open to the idea that his controlling narrative is wrong, and he's got some details mixed up, and he digs into the results, right? So again, for me, this comes down to epistemology, right? And obviously, I have a certain epistemic approach that I believe most Christians don't have, which is why I think there is something to me doing a PhD, right? Cal Magic, I should have prefaced my statement that I don't necessarily agree with my statement, just adding something to the conversation. And it's fantastic, Cal Magic. No, that's really good. And I think your comments are helpful, right? In terms of all of us trying to sort through this idea and analyze it and try to make sense of it, So yeah, not a problem. Like you said, it's not like you're saying, this is my opinion, and it's different than yours. You're saying, hey, what about this? Here's an alternative perspective, etc. Perfect. Yeah. The more conversation, the more dialogue, and the more viewpoints to be considered, the better, right? So I find that very valuable, Cal Magic, and I appreciate it. Yeah, good. Perk says, speaking of Islam, since Muslims also believe in one God and see Jesus as a prophet, should we see him in the same light as we see Jews, like similar but different? I would put them like one step removed even from Judaism, because Judaism has the same like kind of structure and framework for a Messiah and all these types of things, but they don't have Jesus as that Messiah, right? So to me, like if I were to stage it, I guess you have Christians here, and then like one step removed from Christians, you have Jews, and then one step removed from them, I think you have Muslims. I think there are enough differences between Islam and Judaism, and I think Judaism is closer to Christianity. In fact, there's a sense in which Christianity is just reformed Judaism, right? Or not reformed, but fulfilled Judaism. That's all Christianity really is saying the prophecies of Judaism have been fulfilled, right? Whereas to me, Islam goes a step further by positing Muhammad the prophet and other things. So I would kind of stage them like that. It's a good question, Perk, but I think they're one step removed even from Judaism. No, good conversation, guys. Cool. And I want you to know too, Cal Magic, I appreciate your comments, because if I'm going to say things from the pulpit, it's good to get a pulse of how people are feeling. You see what I mean? And so if I say something and you say, I'm not sure I agree, that's really helpful for me, Cal Magic, because then it makes me go, okay, if I say something like this from the pulpit, I better heavily preface it or, put together, some sort of clearer description of why I'm saying what I'm saying. You see what I mean? So I want you to know, Cal Magic, I very much appreciate your comments. They are immeasurably helpful. Okay, good. We're finishing up with verse 10 here. Let's see what else is asked. One more question, it says. Oh, this might be in verse 11. No, verse 10. And they just don't have any comments for verse 11, it looks like. Yeah, because they just switched discourse units. Okay, well, this is the last comment. Let's see what it says. Is the phrase ton aiudion of the Jews a partitive genitive to mean many of the Jews, or it is a genitive of separation to mean many were going away from the Jews? Guys, if you don't know this, that if you get into your Greek grammar, and I'm going to take my contacts out 1 second. All right, switching to glasses. If you guys don't know this, if you open your Greek grammar, either first year, second year, etc., you'll see that they'll they try to put out like, here's the way. So, okay, you've parsed the verb and you find out it's a genitive. Great. That doesn't tell you everything though, because the fact of the matter is that there are many different types of genitive, and a genitive may do many different things in a sentence. So that's why this is being discussed here, because the genitive in context, well, there are a couple good candidates for what it could actually be here. And if you want to find more information like this, you don't have to look only at the exegetical summaries. If you bring up your search, you search books, and let's search grammars, okay? And you can also do this in the exegetical guide. But if you search grammars, then you can search for the actual Bible verse, right? And what this often does, oftentimes you'll get a lot of false flags here, but oftentimes you'll get some good hits as well. And I forget the exact, they use a new, I don't know how to put it, a new syntax, search syntax in the newer versions than what I'm used to. So I'm just going to throw the verse in there and see what comes up. Oftentimes, one of the problems with searching in this way is that they, yeah, I want to be in precise search, so I'm glad it did that. But oftentimes, it will search the verses in a different manner, right? So here's the sort of thing you can get. And if you're looking at sections, so these are in Greek grammars, right? And if you don't know, Greek grammars often have like a lot of really deep insights into the text. And if you, the problem is they're buried somewhere in a random chapter that you're never going to reference during your sermon prep. Well, you can open these and you'll see that it's like, oh, they're referencing actually my particular verse here, right? The second mention, anaphoric. The use of the article with the second mention of a word is very frequent. So they're kind of telling you, and look, here's a specific example and actually references your verses, right? So this is really helpful. Again, the better way to do this, maybe not better, but easier way to do this, is to throw up exegetical guide. Same thing, you're going to search your verses here. So we'll go 9 to 11. And then we go down to grammars, okay? And now this is where it's referencing each of them. And you want one, you don't want one like this. Notice that this has just a jillion verses in here and yours happens to be buried in there. What that's telling you, within the Fourth Gospel, there's a wide range of usage. Exegetic, ekbatic, completing the actions of verbs of will, command, beseech, agree, allow, blah, blah, blah. So you can see this is just too high level. It's not going to give you what you're looking for. Instead, when you're digging through grammars, you want to go to sections like this, where it looks like it's talking about your verse in particular, right? So possibly some editions of Mark contain a marginal correction, a clause paulus for paulus a clause. The former, finding its way into the text without omitting ha, might have been adopted by John, meaning in 12:9, the great multitude of citizens, and in 12:12, the great multitude of the pilgrims. He will not say ha paulus a clause, for that would mean the riffraff. He says ha a clause paulus, the multitude in great numbers. See, that's actually insightful and helpful, right? Especially for translation concerns. So do not neglect, if you're doing some in-depth work in a verse, don't neglect to search your grammars, right? To see if they have any insights on your particular verse, because sometimes they will have some fantastic insights, some fantastic ones. Okay, cool. So genitive of separation or genitive of partitive genitive. Okay, the phrase of the Jews is a partitive genitive, meaning many of the Jews, or the phrase is a genitive of separation, mean we're going away from the Jews. Many Jews were rejecting them and believing in Jesus. I'm going to put both down here. This probably won't even come up in the sermon, okay? When you're doing in-depth exegetical work like this, it isn't always super helpful, but I'm going to grab it. So knowing that there's a genitive question there in verse 10 is helpful. Okay, let's close that down. And I want to dig into some other commentaries at this point. What are we doing for time? I've gone almost an hour. I got a little bit more time. All right. Let's see. Perk says, have you read the Quran? I've read parts of the Quran. I haven't read it cover to cover. I've been curious before, and I want to see what the differences are between the two. First of all, know this about the Quran, that its organization is not chronological. It's by way of chapter, okay? It's longest chapter to shortest chapter, I believe. And so I want you to know that, because if you go to read it, you might be like really confused because it doesn't seem like everything goes together. So I might have got it backwards. It looks like it might be shortest chapter to longest chapter. I don't know. Surah 1 is short, but it might just be an intro. Surah 2, look how long Surah 2 is. Surah means chapter, right? Surah 2, 100 and... what are we at? Almost 300 verses? There it is. Looks like 286 verses in Surah 2. Now let's go to Surah 3. It should be less than 286, but it should still be a lot. Yeah. So their longest to shortest, 200. Now let's go later in the book. Okay, so these should be relatively short. Surah 34, 54 verses. Let's go almost to the end. Surah 61, 14 verses. You see? Surah 62, 11 verses. 11 verses. Okay, this one has 18. Maybe they're shorter by not number of verses, but words or something like that. But anyway, all I know is they're not chronological. So know that. What you should probably search before, if you're going to do a read of the Quran, you should probably search how to read like the Quran chronologically. And it'll tell you, read Surah 58 first, then read Surah 62, then read Surah 8. You know what I mean? Something like that, right? Sheesh chapter 2 might be its own book. Well, chronologically, it may not be the one you want to read first, okay? So just know that if you're going to get into the Quran. The Quran is very different from the Bible. It's kind of hard to follow in some sense. There are a lot of theological declarations and implications in there. You are not wrong. It does mention Jesus. It mentions Jesus as a prophet. They say essentially Jesus is a prophet, but he's not the Son of God. And it heavily militates itself against the Trinity. It does not like the idea of the Trinity, right? So, yeah, you'll find it interesting, I think. But by the way, if you didn't have any Logos or any digital resource for studies, their physical resource, probably a book you would use for study and research. Definitely. Depends on how deep you want to get in your study and research, right? And what you're seeking to do. For example, if I was trying to go in depth, no digital, right? I would probably have something like, and let's say I want to do more grammar work. I'd probably have an interlinear, a reader's interlinear, and I'd have a lexicon, but I'd make sure that it was a lexicon that had every word, right? I forget what they're called, but like if you get, and I would show you these, but I have them upstairs. If you get like a reader's Greek New Testament, it'll be pretty thick and it'll have a lot of the words that are infrequent down in the bottom. And then you can get a lexicon that has every Greek word in it, right? So what that means is between the footnotes and the lexicon, you're going to be able to look up every word you find, which is good because it means you can start reading the words in Greek, right? So that's if you want to do some kind of in-depth grammar and give yourself exposure to the Greek while you're reading. If you're more interested in like theological ideas, a good study Bible, it never hurts. I have a video on how I tier study Bibles. So if you just get like the ESV study Bible in print, fantastic. And if you want to level up some of your theological studies like that, maybe get a study Bible like that and then get like a single volume commentary, right? So if you had like an ESV study Bible and let's call it the New Bible Commentary in print, something like this, that would do wonders. Like just a big single volume commentary and a good study Bible is fantastic. Between the two of those, you're probably going to be able to find the majority of your information. And then finally, you might want to add a systematic theology to that, right? So that'll give you some basic Bible doctrine, theology, etc. So it depends on what you're looking for, right? But yeah, those would be some of my recommendations. All right. Cal Magic says, have you heard about the series The Gospel, streaming now? It's on Ben Shapiro's platform. Looks interesting. About 24 in the discussion. Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Pageau, Catholic Bishop Dennis Prager. Others I don't know. Is it Bishop Robert Barron? Robert Barron's good. I'm thinking about watching it based on the clips on YouTube. Look, I watched a little bit of the Exodus series. I've watched some of Jordan Peterson's old Genesis series. If I had unlimited time, I would have watched all of these by now, Cal Magic. I don't have unlimited time. And I'm not saying you do either, but I have very limited time, and so I have not watched them. I would love to watch them. I think they would be very stimulating discussions, and very thought-provoking as well. So those look awesome to me, Cal Magic. And I saw that it had come out, but we haven't looked at it yet. Yep. Those look really cool though, Cal Magic. And I watched an episode or two from Exodus and I thought it was great, right? Jordan Peterson kind of dominates the conversation, but I think he's supposed to. I think like that's the design. And then he kind of like references the other scholars as well. So yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Arsenal says, I have a friend who recently started reading the Bible for the first time. He is jazzed about Christianity. He's learning as much as he can. I'm so excited for him. Today we had lunch and got to discuss a topic. He was uncertain if he was supposed to repent for his sins each time he sinned. I was really glad to speak with him on that subject. 1 John 1:9 has been misused quite a bit. Yeah, and I'm guessing that's the one that says if we don't confess our sins, we make him a liar and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. If we say we have not sinned, we make him a liar and his word is not in us. Yeah, and I can understand that, Arsenal. Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad God put you in his life to help him in his journey. That's fantastic. Praise God. I'm glad he's on fire. Keep stoking those flames. All right. Perk says, I see. Nice. That's very interesting. I've thought of getting an NLT study Bible, but now that you mentioned translations and such, I think I have a better idea now of what to look for. Depends on how much into the original languages you want to get. I really like the NLT study Bible. I'm not sure if I owned it when I did my, I don't think I did. Maybe I did. I'm not sure I owned it when I did my review of study Bibles, but it's a good study Bible. It's not one of my top 3, but this is a good study Bible with good notes in general. And again, if you supplement this is a readable translation, which I like. If you don't like reading the ESV, I love NLT and NIV. They're more readable for many. And getting a good study Bible in a readable translation is excellent. And then you could supplement that with like a 1-volume commentary. And so let's say you get the NLT study Bible and, you know, I already showed the new Bible commentary. Let's go, here, I'll show you just another one that I think is really good. I want to do a tier list on single volume commentaries at some point as well, by the way, but just haven't had time. Another one that I think is really good on single volume commentaries is I like the Moody Bible commentary. This one is nice. So this is one maybe you could, like, if you got the NLT study Bible and you added the Moody Bible commentary, that's a good set, right? That would serve you really well. Also, let's see. Like I already showed you New Bible Commentary. This is another good one. New International Bible Commentary. I think this one is put out by Zondervan. This is another one I like. This one right here, F.F. Bruce. So that'd be a good setup, right? And again, I would purchase study Bible based both on study Bible notes and on translation. Okay, you want to look at both things. And NLT is a good translation and has good notes. Okay, this is more on the readable side of the translations, right? Let me just read a few. Let me read these verses in the ESV, and then let me read them to you in the NLT. You'll notice the difference. Look, it says, I'm sorry, let's go back to where we were before. John 12, 9-11. When the large crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came, not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. Notice how clunky that verse is, verse 9. Let's go to the NLT and see how the NLT puts it. Hold on, I want to close this. Insights tab. I want to close this Insights tab too. Listen to how the NLT puts this same verse. When all the people heard of Jesus' arrival, they flocked to see him, and also to see Lazarus, the man Jesus had raised from the dead. Notice how much easier that is to read, right? And if you're somebody who struggles, right, you want as few stumbling blocks in your way to getting to the word as possible. So if people find it easier to read certain translations, I'm all for it. When all the people heard of Jesus' arrival, they flocked to see him, and also to see Lazarus, the man Jesus had raised from the dead. Again, back to ESV. When the large crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came, not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. Same idea, much more difficult to read. Let's see, Perk says, Jordan Peterson seems like a great resource for learning. His commentaries are quite insightful. Yes, I would recommend him to mature Christians. And it's only because a lot of his ideas are, I don't know how to put it. They're theologically, I almost want to say reckless, right? They're not, I don't know the right word, okay? I like Jordan Peterson a lot. I've read his stuff. I like watching the videos. And he's heavily influenced by Carl Jung, who was not a Christian, but had very intriguing, interesting, weird ideas himself. They're both open to the spiritual, right? But in very unique ways. Jordan Peterson is not for the immature. I'll just put it that way, okay? But I can heartily recommend him for people who are mature and discerning. I think he brings a lot to the table, right? Arsenal, NLT so smooth, NASB for literal. There you go. Exactly, Arsenal. Exactly. Perk says that, that's why the NLT is my favorite translation. As a bilingual person learning a third language, paraphrasing translations are the best. Even with modern languages, paraphrasing is the way to go. I wouldn't hesitate to get the NLT study Bible then, Perk. I like it. I like it. Cal Magic, if you were to give a 3-lesson study for people who are new Christians / baptism as a next stop, milk to meat, consider a Deuteronomy 32 worldview. What would you teach? Yes, my pastor asked me to do this. I have no idea how to start. Would love some advice. I went to Supernatural. I actually did a very similar thing, Cal Magic. And rather than going into the unseen realm, I went to Supernatural and I looked at his highlights. What are some of the key ideas he brings up? And then I would go through and I would boil down some of the key insights from Supernatural. That's what I would do if I were you. I don't see another great way to do it. The other option you have is he has... Oh, also, have you read his fiction? The Facade, The Portent, etc. Aliens. Anyway, interesting stuff. I haven't read it all fully. I think it's a trilogy. The other option you might go with is Heiser has a lot of like courses that you could look into, and you could look into some of the courses and how he teaches the topic, right? So he has short courses on like a lot of things. Sons and Daughters of God, the believer's identity, calling, and destiny. Brief insights on mastering the Bible. He has a lot of courses, and so you might take some of his courses and try to summarize those as well, right? Or you can open up his Supernatural Study Guide, which you can see I've referenced as well, and you can see some of what is talked about here. The big picture, the main idea. Honestly, this is probably a good first stop, Cal Magic, is Supernatural Study Guide. This guy right here. All right, Perk says, that said, I got to go now. Thank you for your time and answering my questions, Pastor. Have a good night and Happy New Year, Pastor. You as well. Absolutely. My pleasure. And that probably marks a good stopping point for me as well. Let me just double check here. I just don't want to leave when I have an open loop. Yeah, we did our exegetical summaries. I'd be pushing it. I could open, I had plans on digging into some of these other commentaries. And just seeing what they have to say about the text. Let's open a couple. Guys, I don't know what it is about me. I love going to these old commentaries. If you look at all these ones that have like the same cover, they're usually from like a set that Logos puts out. And look at the dates on all of them. 1907, 1874, 1898, 1865, 1881, 1861, right? I love these old commentaries. Let's open this 1861 and just see what it says. I dare you to bore me with the Bible. Yes, that's a good initial reference also. Yep. Let's see what this 1861 says about these verses. Okay, it's short. These Jews came to convince themselves of the truth of Lazarus' restoration to life. And as many went away believing on Christ, the more hostile party resolved to put, if possible, both him and Lazarus to death. This visit of the Jews happened on the Saturday Sabbath evening or early on the Sunday morning. End quote. Yeah, like to me that's intriguing. Short notes on John's Gospel. Let's grab another old one. 1881. Okay, this one's longer. Yeah, let's read this. A great multitude, blah, blah, blah. Beside this little feast in Bethany, this great miracle had its strong effect on the multitudes that had come up to the Passover. They had heard very much about Jesus. They wished to see him. But now there was an added attraction. In the same spot, the same house with him, was the man whom he had called out of the tomb. The effect was fourfold. Here was a sight greater than the world could show, and unlike the world's exhibition, there was nothing to pay for it. Thus, one day Jesus and his risen ones will be together, and the world will run to behold the glory, the same glory, that of the Son, which will encircle both the raised and the risen one. Like, very nice. I love these old commentaries. By the way, I want to grab the author here because oftentimes I forget. Henry Downing. Henry Downing is this one. And then this one is Robert Govett. By the way, I love the info tab is one click now. Robert Govett. But on the Savior's enemies, this sign and this curiosity of the people told the other way. They hate Jesus, and now they hate with like hatred and seek to involve in a common death Jesus and his raised friend. As the head and members together are hated by the foes of Christ, so they shall be blessed together in the day of his glory. The trouble comes first, but the kingdom shall make amends for all. If we are with Christ in his rejection, with him likewise shall we be in his reigning. Jesus and his saints are one. As they are one in the world's hatred, so shall they be one at last in the Father's glory. If with him we suffer, with him shall we reign. But what wickedness of the Jews was this? One ill design leads on to another. It is necessary to back up the first by a second. What? Slay this worker of wonders and leave alive this monument of his power? All the people will cry, shame upon us for putting him to death. So we must cut off both root and branch. They are fighting against evidence greater than Moses gave of his commission, but they will not yield. Though they fight against God, this is still the case. Pride keeps multitudes on their way of unbelief. The Pharisees would not in their pride allow a rival. They hated him, the manifestly accredited of God, because to own him would have broken their worldly schemes, their wicked standing and party. At first they proposed that one should die instead of the people, but now necessity, the tyrant's plea, requires that two should. That's a really good quote. Because they said that earlier about Jesus, right? Sometimes the old commentaries are the best commentaries, guys. Because it is quite ironic. It is quite ironic that earlier they said one man should die for the good of the people. I'm going to actually write this down. Read Govett. Now, two must die for the good of the people. Notice that the path of ends justify means is more and more slippery. As the head and members together are hated by the foes of Christ, so they shall be blessed together into the day of his glory. I already read all that. The Sadducees were doubtless exasperated that resurrection, which they denied as a thing impossible, should make its living appeal in contradiction to them in the person of Lazarus. Miracles arouse, but of themselves they do not convert. Oh, I already grabbed that piece. That is a really good quote. So they could arouse or incite you. I'll probably put incite. They can arouse or incite you to do harm, right? Jesus doesn't fit my categories or my box, so we're going to kill him. Or they could arouse you to investigate. And I could also put this in the context of the Antichrist, which Cal Magic brought up. Because I want people to be careful in these last days, right? I don't want anyone of the church to be fooled. Jess the Mess Games. Howdy, first time visitor here. How is sermon prep going? I've always wanted to get into Logos, but I need to get used to the layout, I think. Yeah, good to see you, Jess the Mess. Thanks for swinging by. Sermon prep is going well. I'm working through a very interesting passage here in John chapter 12, 9 through 11, and enjoying it very much. When the crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priest made plans to put Lazarus to death as well, because on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and believing in Jesus, right? And so I'm just working through these passages. We're reading some old commentaries. I have a lot of training videos on Logos if you want to kind of get used to it. There are a couple of what I would call easy buttons in Logos as well. And I have a lot of buying guides just recommending different things to purchase for people who are interested, right? So if you have any questions on that, let me know. I am about to sign off soon. So, please understand that. But you can always check out our YouTube channel for any details. And yeah, happy to help. So feel free to ask any questions if you have them. Let's read the rest of Robert Govett. Let's read the rest of Govett's commentary here. Man, these
I don't know why you're
commentaries are
clapping.
solid
I'm
gold,
talking
guys.
about you.
These sacrificers of the lambs of men refuse the Lamb of God. These men of the shadow hate the substance. Whew. This Lazarus made men leave the Pharisees' party. Those who had any love for the truth withdrew. They durst not continue their opposition to one so manifestly sent of God. This then was not to be endured by Jesus' foes. They will destroy Jesus and Lazarus, though it be in effect destroying themselves. So deep is this desperate wickedness of men. These chief priests, who had the most light and privilege of any in the world, act in the fiercest opposition and hatred to the right. Boom. Yeah, fantastic quotes there. Okay, guys, I think that's a good stopping point. Oh, come on.
Jess the Mess Games just resubbed for 1 month.
Let's go. Yes, Cal Magic with the gifted. Jess the Mess Games. Fantastic. Thank you so much for the gifted sub, Cal Magic. Much love to you. Much appreciation. Jess the Mess, welcome to the channel and welcome to your new sub. Yes, and thank you for the follow as well. I appreciate that. Sorry I missed it. Fantastic. Awesome. Well, Jess, I stream most Monday evenings. So if you want to catch us again, it'll be a similar earlier time, but a similar place next Monday, Lord willing. All right, guys, I'm going to take off. I've gone almost an hour and 20
Your
minutes.
life is not in your hands. Your life is in the hands of God.
Love it.
Arsenal of Grace just resubbed for 5 months.
Thank you so much, Arsenal of Grace, for the Prime. That's awesome. Much love to you. Hey, thanks for the stream. Have a great week. Thank you. You as well. And feel free to check out my channel if you have any questions. All right. We'll see you guys all later. I'm going to record a quick vlog for the Patreon, and then I'm going to take off. Appreciate you all very much. I hope that you have a fantastic week, and we'll catch you all again real soon. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2025. Take care. God bless.